Huge round of applause for women filmmakers, right? Yeah. Erica, if you want to say, can you tell me about your casting?
Sure. Actually, I wanted to introduce, so this is Kayleen, grown up.
Hi.
And this is...
I'm Kelly Bonbright, the production designer for So Much Yellow.
Yeah, so our casting process was really interesting when we figured out we were gonna actually make this thing that I had written. We didn't quite know how to cast a 2 or 3-year-old with Down syndrome and his sister. So we went actually first to LA and started talking to the woman who helps cast Glee. I found her through Facebook, and she works with actors with Down syndrome, and she suggested we connect with a group here in the Bay Area called the Down Syndrome Connection, and they were amazing, and we loved them. And Kayleen's family was a part of, used their services. Hi, Brandy. But we actually put out a casting call through that organization. They hosted our auditions, which were very play-based auditions, and we auditioned about 10 to 15, I'm trying to remember how many sibling pairs. Finally came upon Kayleen and Otto, who were just phenomenal. They had such a deep connection, and that was how we found our child actors. And then from that, we had kept the idea of what this family, where they came from, what they looked like, open to, we wanted to find the children first and then figured out the parents. So from there, we put out a call for the adult actors. And I have to say, it was funny finding a man who felt like he didn't work in front of a laptop in the Bay Area. A lot of the actors that we auditioned were great, but they just didn't feel like they would hold this sort of, hold all the secrets of their life inside. So finally, when we found Annie Strong, that was great. He was great. And then Dana came a little late as the mother. Do you want to?
Great, thank you. All right, I'm gonna ask a quick question. Florencia, maybe? I've really found it fascinating how you took this topic and placed it in a bar at a meeting. And can you just say a little bit of something about how that came, the layers of that?
Okay. I had written a slightly longer script where, you were in Claudia's home and saw her family life, and then there was just a longer situation. And then I really wanted to shoot it and didn't want to have to fundraise a lot, so I figured how to pare it down to its essence. And then I realized I really didn't need anything other than the bar scene. So yeah, so that was a thing that helped me sort of carved out what was, and that the dynamic between the more experienced person and then the younger woman was at the core, and then also just the coming from different cultural perspectives. Yeah. So.
And then moving down the line, Pam, thank you for sharing. So how did you why don't you kick off with how you came to this story?
Yeah, but first I want to say thank you to you guys and to the Albany Twin. This is such a treat to have your work shown in a theater like this. So that was great. I came to this story, I had been wanting to make a film about South Berkeley that talked a lot about the issues that are covered in this film, but I really couldn't figure out how to make a story out of it. And then about almost 10 years ago, Mildred Howard and I met, and I was telling her about my struggles to make this story about South Berkeley. And she said, oh, by the way, my mom is the person who got BART underground through South Berkeley. And I thought it was really odd that I didn't know that. And I thought it was even odder that people who had lived in the area longer than I had didn't know that. And it just kind of built from there. And she started telling me people to talk to. And everyone that I approached and said I'd like to make a film about Mama Howard was like, yes, I'll talk about her. So I thought, I've got to get people to realize who this woman was and how important she was. And so then everything just kind of came together after that.
Well, we can open it up to any questions. If anyone has a question for the filmmakers or actors.
Thank you. It was so great. The variety of films, I have to say, was curated really well. I have a question about where they took that little boy. Was that what they used to do? Could you explain that? I teach dance to children with Down syndrome, and I'd like to know more about that place.
Yeah, actually, so when this film was set in the 60s, it was very common to institutionalize children with Down syndrome. So that was, and we had actually, I had started doing this film as a documentary many, many years ago, probably 12 years ago, or 10, sorry, time, I don't know. But about a guy who lived in a group home in Sonoma County, and he had this wonderful life, lived in this group home that was very wonderful to him. He is gay, he married himself at some point. He was an explorer of like sensuality and religion. Wonderful guy with Down syndrome. But when I started to talk with him about his life in his group home, I realized that he didn't talk. No one else in the group home spoke except for the parents. And there were very few pictures. So I was like, wow, how am I going to tell this story about him? So we sat down and we just started unfolding the lives of the people in this group home. And several of them had been institutionalized as children. And then as the Reagan years came along and they started shutting down the institutions, they ended up in group homes. And I was trying to figure out how to tell the story. I knew that I couldn't do it in a traditional documentary fashion, and I would have to do all these recreations. And I finally sort of stopped and said, I'm gonna just try and fictionalize this completely. Like, take it away from particularly his experience, and I started talking to a lot of different siblings and people who had lost family members to institutionalization, and kind of mashed that experience in with my own experience. And then as Kayleen and Otto became a part of it, and also Sophia, who was the voiceover artist, and her brother Andre, we just sort of put all of our lives together and made this film. But back in the day, if you had Down syndrome, it was very, very common that with that diagnosis would be the suggestion or advice that your child should be sent away to be institutionalized, and then they would live their lives in an institution. So I really wanted to dramatize that day, what it would feel like to do that, and particularly from a naive point of view of a sister who just didn't really even understand what was happening at all.
Anybody else? Jules?
Hello, congratulations to you all, and thank you for being here. I just wanted to ask about the color yellow and the meaning of that to you. I mean, I think the production design was absolute poetry, and the marriage of the story and the design was mind-blowing. And every hint of yellow was so, the subtle yellow hints, just even the line on the road, the yellow line that goes, I mean, everything was so symbolic and beautiful. And I'd love to hear about the process of how where yellow, how it felt to you, why yellow, on a personal note, and how you worked together, creating.
Got it. Well, the initial impetus for the name So Much Yellow, and the thing was, I was just trying to think about my experience of California. If I were a little girl on her first real road trip, and it was the spring in California, what's the thing? And I'm from Colorado, where it's so much green, But when I first moved here for college, I remember going into the wine country and that like electric yellow of mustard season, and how striking that was. And that was sort of, so when I started writing it, I just wanted to place it during that time and have a really particular season, and have I feel like very often the things that we experience in life, like the worst things, sometimes come with the most beautiful images, and that was the thing there. So then Kelly took that and rocked it.
Yeah, so the hero car was, we had gone and found a million different cars. One was white, and it was this huge Lincoln, and it just wasn't really fitting with our story. And then just I kind of happened on this perfect yellow Chevy Nova that was a station wagon for a family. And it was so great that it was yellow, and just everything started clicking yellow kind of on this film magically, I felt like. The mustards were in bloom. We filmed these 3 weekends in February, March time, which was perfect for our schedule. But yeah, I love to theme things out, so I kind of had, as I was picking props and cars and stuff like that, I really had the yellow in my mind, and I think what we cut in this film was a really good kind of way to display the yellow everywhere without being too kind of yellow and intrusive. Yeah, it was good. And then I really want to give credit to our amazing costume designer, Kelly Townley. I love the looks of her outfits in that film, and I think it really brought everything together, especially the period, the time period. Yeah.
Anybody else in the way back? Kind of center. Yeah. Great. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I just wanted to ask you all, and by the way, congratulations. How difficult or how successful was it for your fundraising? Because we hear how many millions and millions of dollars are used to make rubbishy films. And yet I bet you've all struggled to get the funds to make these remarkable pieces. So maybe each of you could talk a little about how you fundraise.
That's a great question, and it's really something that I personally am still trying to figure out. This film started about 4.5 years ago with a budget of $125,000, and I raised $20,000. That's it. Everything else came through community. The people who worked on this giving me amazing discounts. I tried to never ask anyone to work for free too much, but people giving me incredibly discounted rates. So that really helped, and then I just did a lot of it myself as well. And I'm still fundraising. I got some really great news recently that this was chosen to show on Truly California. So, yeah. That means that I have to get all the broadcast licensing for everything, so I am still fundraising. In fact, just to put that final thing, and then it's done. So I haven't figured it out is the short answer to that. So I'd love to hear other people.
Wait, Pam, do you have a Indiegogo or something like that going?
I'm doing it through my fiscal sponsor because I want them to get the percentage rather than Indiegogo. It works out to be about the same. And my fiscal sponsor is the San Francisco Film Society. If anybody wants to donate, you can go to my website, which is welcometotheneighborhoodfilm.com. And there's a donation link to the San Francisco Film Society where you can donate to the film. And that's how I'm doing it, because I would like for them to get that few percent rather than just this platform. So, thank you.
Florencia?
Okay, great question. Really uncomfortable topic for some of us. This I self-funded. That was kind of the point of making it so small in scope and having one location, which, by the way, was the Ivy Room, which is around the corner. And I don't know if the Ivy Room people are here, but they were extremely generous and gracious to let us shoot there. So there was a lot of people working for tiny rates or volunteering their time, crunched it all into a one-day shoot so that the dollar can stretch. But yeah, for my next project, I'm preparing a crowdfunding campaign, and you really can't self-fund unless you're making something very small in scope. So yeah, thank you for supporting filmmakers, and please try to do so all the time because it's such an expensive art form, and we don't live in countries where like there's government support for art. So, yeah.
One of the lucky things about the crew who made so much yellow is that we work at Pixar Animation Studios, and so a portion of our funding came through our educational allowance. It's kind of crazy, but Pixar gives everyone $1,000 to spend on education, and they allow us to combine that money to go towards independent projects. So that was sort of amazing. We were able to raise money within our crew members for that, and then they also contributed. Most, I would say like 90% of the people who worked on this worked for free. So that was also wonderful. We had a really dedicated professional crew who just came because they had a passion for the project. In addition to that, though, I did do an Indiegogo campaign for $10,000, and that just because it costs. It's true. It's even if you have like so much contributed or people working for very low cost, there's just so many things. Studio teachers. If you love working with kids, I love working with kids. They're expensive. But it is, I agree. I think, folks who contribute to independent films, I salute you. I appreciate it. I think it's so hard to feel confident and driven enough to drag together 40, 50 crew members and actors, and it's such a collaborative art form. And I always feel that in the end, I've been able to collaborate with my audience and my funders and my friends in this crazy way where it's like that little contribution of like $20, $100, $5 to people's social media campaigns is quadrupled or tenfold in terms of the confidence you give to them of like, oh, this story is worth telling. You value a story from me, you value a story like this from us. It's huge. So thank you for that. That's a massive thing.
Thanks. So I think we have time for just one more question.
Good evening. Mine is not a question. I would like to comment on Welcome to Berkeley. My great aunt and uncle lived off of Ashby near San Pablo. I saw the movement of the Europeans out of the area, the disintegration of the neighborhood, the arrival of the African Americans, and the neighborhood went up, up, up. It was such an interesting thing. Now, my great aunt and uncle remained there and were really kind of the sole occupants that were European that I knew of in the neighborhood. It was interesting. It's part of your story. And if you'd want to talk to me about it, I can't comment on what some of my relatives had to say, but from my point of view as a child, it was fantastic. So, do you want to talk to me a moment?
Yeah, but I do want to also just say really quickly that I grew up in the South, and in fact, my dad is here today, which I'm really happy about. I can't see him though. And when I moved to South Berkeley, I felt like I had stepped back into a small southern town. Everybody said hello to you on the street, and I found out that the reason for that is because all of these people had come really from where I had grown up. I grew up in Arkansas, and a lot of the people who came here came from Arkansas, Louisiana, and Texas. And so it really felt like this culture that I knew very, very well. And it was a very special culture. Carl Anthony, who said the white people who live in this neighborhood and experience the African American culture have something quite precious. I really felt that that was true for myself, and I felt really grateful to experience. So it's been hard to watch that disappearing. It's been very
I
hard.
agree.
Yeah. But thank you for saying that.
All right, well, thank you so much for being here.